Guyanese, and I thank all the our well-wishers and supporters for being here. This morning's topic, LINDEN, Economic Development Policy, is one that epitomizes the lack of, not lack of promises, but the lack of implementation of promises. The plethora of broken promises that have brought this country to its knees and made us the poorest country in the English-speaking Caribbean. And I think no region epitomizes it like Region 10. I wanted to start today with going through some of the promises that have been made over the decades, really, and are regurgitated. The reality is there is nothing particularly wrong with these plans and promises. It's that they're never implemented. They're never executed, only in the margins. And then they come up again every election cycle, and we go through the pain of frustration, and we see the underdevelopment of our economy. Region 10 is known as a bauxite and logging community, covering 6,600 square miles, with a population of over 40,000. It's a community heavily dependent on bauxite and logging, and subject to the vagaries of Rusal, as we're experiencing now in an extreme way, and Bosai, for jobs in the bauxite industry. Just a little background on a region stymied in underdevelopment. Politicians from the two old parties consistently fail to keep manifesto promises. It's a tale of broken promises. It's like the blossom that never becomes a flower. We have faithfulness, loyalty, and support purchased with divisive and race politics, and promises that are rarely kept. And just an introduction to, in my opinion, how these old parties go about introducing their manifesto is the reality one, that we seek political power. This is their, what should I say, underlying agenda in presenting the manifesto. And the reality, number one, is that we seek political power. So here's what we promise you. And for the PPP manifesto, I'm using the one the last time they won the executive in 2011. They have promote growth in the bauxite industry. None took place. Facilitate major investment by the bauxite companies in increased capacity. This did not happen. Construction of new kilns, which is used to convert bauxite to a more heat-resistant material and add value. Obviously, that would have added jobs, employment, and higher export earnings. This did not happen. Encouraged the exports of new products, such as mullite, which is a heat-resistant mineral, and propans, which is a ceramic particle, again to add value. This did not happen. And those were the major promises coming from the PPP. They also had one that has, the last time we had an aluminum plant in Guyana, I think it was closed in 1982, which, you know, you get the alumina, or the aluminum oxide from the aluminum ore. And they've said in their manifesto that they would establish a feasibility study for an aluminum production plant. Well, I don't know if it's still being studied, but the reality is we don't have anything close to an aluminum bauxite plant. Now we move to AFC, 2015 promises in their manifesto. And I must say it's more detailed, more specific, and it has twice the amount of promises that the PNC, the PPP made. It may be reflective of the fact that PNC normally garners 85% of the votes in Region 10 compared to PPP 15%. So it's as if the promises double based on the amount of votes you can garner. But that has nothing to do with reality of implementing and executing. And I have a colleague in Alabama once told me, you know, you don't judge people by promises and the talk, you judge them by the action and results. And clearly, we have a failure of action, which is typified by the absence of results that could uplift Region 10. So, just to mention some of APNU promises: create a development plan for Region 10. Rescue and modernize the bauxite industry. Obviously, these things have not been done. It's not been modernized. As a matter of fact, it has deteriorated versus rescued. Invite and support foreign investment from reputable and known multinationals to develop an aluminum industry in Guyana. You notice the similarity. Both of them are going to develop an aluminum industry, but nothing has been done. Create new jobs alongside policies to guarantee workers' rights. Now, you know, going through this is almost comical. When I was with Robert, we were in Linden, I think it was last week, Sunday, and we were looking at the listing of promises that were made and were shocked, appalled, and very concerned that nothing was implemented. These are parties with a huge apparatus, have been governing this country for over 50 years, and it's almost an insult to your intelligence to have to accept that this is what goes to the people, and our people still support them, and it's because of the divisiveness. So it's not the policies that attract the votes, it's the racial division, and they play on it. And this is what has kept this country stagnated and in an extreme state of underdevelopment with high levels of poverty. They promised also, this is APNU AFC, to develop the 200,000 hectares of intermediate savannas for citrus, cattle, legumes, vegetables, and have Region 10 as the country's second frontier for agricultural development. I mean, these things sound fine, but they're empty words, broken promises, like develop the Tiger Falls and other hydroelectrical potential in the region to facilitate regional industrial development. It's like you're writing to impress. It's just words. Because 4 years have passed and none of these things have happened. Intensify block making capability, promote furniture manufacturing and other value-added products. There is no furniture factory. There is no wood processing plant. So you see the consistency of failure to implement, to attract foreign investors, because this is what is really needed. Attract foreign investors and give them the concessions and the incentives to invest in the different regions so that we can have an upliftment in the quality of lives of the citizens that live in these communities. Re-engage the government of Brazil and commence the Linden-Lethem Road. We've heard it before. We saw a beautiful picture with I think it was a 2-lane paved road, and one would have thought that it's been completed or started, but it really has not commenced. I don't think any paved road exists in any part between Linden and Lethem. Transform Linden to make it the main entry point for ecotourism. I think they were just adding on new ideas. Establish a University of Guyana campus in Linden. This has not been done. So you see the continuity and the sequence of broken promises that has obviously had an adverse effect not in Region 10, but this extends across the country. It's just that it's more severe in Region 10 than many of the other regions. So the reality too is that, and this is now from the party's perspective, when we are in power and we have your vote, the word broken is a necessity of the present. We'll break the promise because we are already in power. We command the heights and the hierarchy of the country and the political system. So, you know, and this is Machiavellian thinking. You know, a promise, as Machiavelli said, a promise is given was a necessity of the past, and the word broken is a necessity of the present. And to me, both parties play into this, just looking at what they've promised and what they have delivered, rather what they have failed to deliver. The epicenter for the plunder of resources from onshore Guyana is worse symbolized in Region 10, with the resultant paltry returns to the citizens of the region from the extraction of bauxite and the cutting of the timber. The average annual production of bauxite from Region 10 over the last 5 years approximates 1.5 million metric tons, and it averages 110 million annually in export revenue. In terms of timber, the average annual production over the last 5 years is approximately 120,000 cubic meters, with an average annual export valued at $40 million US. So if just 10% of that money stays in Linden, you know, you would have a buoyant community once the monies are invested in industry and infrastructure and job creation. But the fact is the monies really don't stay in the community, and it comes out and leaves the community so much poorer, as is evident when you go to these towns and villages across Guyana. And the little traveling that I have done so far, whether it's Potentia, you know, Skeldon, New Amsterdam, what you generally see, because I've traveled quite a lot through my sports career or as an administrator and businessman across Guyana, is the deterioration. It's like, it's worse now than 5 years ago, and 5 years ago it was worse than it was the previous 5 years. So we really have you know, it's like we're just declining down the mountainside. So we must expedite the process to change the image of Linden as a drive-through region to a viable economic region with high-paying jobs by building factories to add value and utilize the 500,000 acres of the intermediate savannas. So change Guyana development policy for Region 10 follows. We'll have a special economic zone with the aim to increase employment and attract investment in different industries in Linden, so we can have job creation and effective administration and high-paying jobs that will keep the persons in Linden and also attract Guyanese from other regions to go and work in Linden and have more businesses in Linden that will uplift the community. Well, we feel our tax policy extends in every strata of our economic policy and will benefit all regions, which one of them is to have no income taxes for those working for less than $100,000. Vehicle taxes will be reduced significantly. Currently, we are paying 300% for vehicles over 3,000 cc, 300% in taxes. We'll reduce that to 100%. And vehicle taxes, you know, have an impact on the kind of vehicle you can buy. You go to the Linden car park, and a lot of the vehicles are really unsafe to travel, and those vehicles have to come down 60 miles, you know, on a daily basis, taking their passengers. It's really a high-risk activity, and when you see the escalating death by accidents, you know a lot of it has to do with the lack of safety of these vehicles, the lack of warning signals, you know, whether it's moving out of a lane or the absence of a passenger airbag bag or double passenger airbag. These things have consequences. These excessive and Robert put it well in saying extortionary taxes that are imposed on the Guyanese people, and none is more signified than the taxes to import a vehicle into Guyana. We feel at Linden, the areas of Mabura, Kokwani, Aichuni, which most of the logs come out from, there should be a levy placed on them, which will be used to develop the region with priority emphasis on paving the highways from Linden to Kokwani, and for infrastructure development that will create an environment to make livelihood in Region 10 prosperous. We will focus on the 200,000 hectares in the intermediate savannas for the farming of limes and lemons, legumes, vegetables, and to rear livestock and poultry. Indeed, Linden also has the land space, the soil type suitable for large agricultural investment. Again, it's about attracting investors locally and foreign and give them the incentives they'll need to succeed. We will establish a university campus in Linden. We'll put incentives in place to attract investors for the building of an aluminum plant in Region 10 to convert the aluminum ore to aluminum oxide. Now, it sounds the same promises the PPP made, the same promises the PNC made. But if you look at, they have done this repeatedly. So what's the difference? It comes down to leadership. It comes down to the commitment and the determination of the persons making those statements, and the willingness to serve, to give back, because we've all benefited from being Guyanese and living here, and are in a position that with the knowledge and the exposure and the experience that you have, you can give back. And not in a partisan manner. And that is what I think is really undermining Guyana, because of the partisanship. Instead of the inclusiveness and trying to come together in a unified manner, we have this extreme underdevelopment. We will establish a wood processing factory and incentivize foreign and local investors, and if necessary, use public and private partnerships to have these factories in place, both the wood processing and the furniture factory. We will keep graduates in Region 10 by bolstering economic activity, allowing for businesses to pay livable and higher wages. We will defend workers' rights to allow for fair employment practices. Change Guyana will collaborate with vocational and technical institutes and local businesses to allow for job training and the employment of graduates. We will encourage micro, small, and medium-sized businesses to flourish by working with financial institutions to provide low-interest finances to entrepreneurs and potential entrepreneurs, with allowances to lending institutions to obtain tax credits. One of the key areas that we have identified is the need for a wharf facility in Region 10 to transport value-added timber for the export market and other regions of Guyana. So instead of all that timber you see every day with these massive trucks with 30 logs leaving Linden, I heard it's about 10 to 20 a day, you know, most of it will stay in Linden and go through the wood processing factory, some to the furniture, and then to the furniture factory, and it's really for the export market, and Lindeners will benefit, and that will cause a huge boost in employment. I think Mr. Day referenced how adding value right there in Linden to the over 80% of lumber that is exported could benefit Linden in a major way. So these are some of our priorities. But before I want to touch on this one where we talk about the Linden to Lethem Highway. So we will make sure, commit to the Linden-Lethem Highway becoming a reality. Not a promise, not another broken promise for another election cycle, but once in the National Assembly, ensure that before any budget can pass, measures are put in place to have commencement of these investment and improvements to the infrastructure. And we see the Linden-Lethem Highway as instrumental to opening up from Region 9 through 7, 10, and easily connected to Region 6 and 5. So that's something that is of absolute importance, and it underlines the recognition by the old parties that these things need to be done, but when they get into power, their focus does not seem to. It looks like if they just discard the manifesto, we're in power now, and we just govern using our discretion and whatever, you know, in some cases, whimsical decision making. The challenge is to change Region 10 from an economically depressed community to one that enjoys accelerated and economic development is to be overcome by leadership that implements and executes promises made instead of a trail of broken promises, decade after decade. Change Guyana offers that leadership. The manifesto promises of the two old parties are like colorful sacks with glittering ornaments on the outside and little substance in the inside to improve the quality of lives. From the high levels of poverty, poor infrastructure, and lack of jobs and low wages. Region 10 has won the National School Championships for the last 5 years. It is indeed a wonderful achievement. However, the community accomplished this in a disadvantageous environment. And now, when these kids and the youths get back to their communities, where are the educational opportunities for advancement and the training for jobs? What prospects do they have for employment when they return as national champions to their communities? No jobs, poor healthcare systems, lack of opportunity for academic development, an unsupportive sports environment, a dilapidated infrastructure, little or no business opportunity, and a general state of hopelessness and rejection. And I just had a thought back in 2016, I think I was in Wismar, and we had come over the bridge and somehow, excuse me, we were doing some walking, and I saw school children. The roads were basically like canals, small canals, and they were walking on the ridges outside of the canals because they couldn't use the road. And, you know, it struck me, and I think it was around 2016, and I had contacted a senior politician to say, you know, this is an area that delivered so much for you in terms of support, and like nothing is being done. And, you know, when we were in New Amsterdam, I think it was last weekend, you know, the infrastructure just strikes you. The dilapidated and decrepit buildings are too numerous to count. And, you know, you feel as a Guyanese almost embarrassed because when you drive through other countries, Caribbean countries, the landscape is so much better. So in closing, we must change the extremely underdeveloped state of affairs in Region 10 to one of inclusive and accelerated economic development. And Change Guyana commits to no broken promises and the enrichment of Region 10 by implementing and fulfilling promises made. Thank you.